It looks like we are back at Okay, welcome back. So during the time that we were off, not to get too technical, but basically Dave had to go up on the roof and point the laser beam at Scotland, and it's a bit windy. So, but he managed to get it right, and we're on the air again, so welcome back.
Curvature of the Earth is a major problem.
It's true. So where does that leave us? We're back onto our schedule.
So yeah, I think we've got Tim Donaldson joining us right now to give us his show report. Hey, Tim.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good.
Great.
Welcome back.
Great. Dave, did you have to use some tin foil up there on the roof, or?
Yeah, I had to throw a tinfoil frisbee to deflect that laser.
Nice. There you go. Great. I mean, this is just amazing. I mean, we have Keith over in Scotland. You guys are in the UK. I'm south of Boston.
Right.
And it's all working. You know, it's a great thing. And Pete's in North Carolina. We did the switch over.
That's right. We've got all the bases covered.
It's fantastic. All right. Hey, guys. So, yeah, real quick, I think we have a few minutes. So I'm going to talk to you about a session I sat in on aeration diffusers. I picked it because I said, what's an aeration diffuser? Wasn't quite sure. I Googled it before I actually joined the session. I said, yeah, I'll sit in on that. That looks kind of interesting. And also the session was
Tim, you've just got muted there. Wouldn't mind?
Is that better?
That's much better.
Yeah, well, it helps if I don't hit anything while I'm talking, right? Sorry about that. So I don't know where I was. So I did a session on aeration diffusers. That's what I sat in on. And it's really interesting. I mean, Chris, Dave, do you know what an aeration diffuser is?
I'm assuming it's one of those things where, like in the water treatment plant, where you can put bubbles through. You've got that big spinning tank, and bubbles go, and the little microbes use the oxygen to eat the things.
Exactly, kind of loosen everything up a little bit. I thought about maybe trying to get some for my pool when I first opened it in the spring, because I have a lot of algae in there, so maybe that would be good, you know, kick up that stuff. But I don't know, maybe I'll buy one. Anyways, I guess there's two different types of these. You know, you can have your ceramic ones, and then with those you get different disc sizes, and then membranes. You can use one with a membrane, but they talked about some of the advances with cleaning them and how they're going through the cleaning process. They can do a bump on them, so kind of, or flex it, they call it, so they can kind of give it a shot of air to kind of clean it out, or they can use acid. The problem with using acid, though, is A, you have to get the acid to the location, and then B, you know, obviously handle it. So this acid is pretty toxic. In some towns, municipalities have a problem. The fire department won't let them transport that across the streets, so therefore they can't use it. So that's one issue. But in industrial settings, they do use the acid treatment a lot. However, those are, I believe, the only acids can only be used when you're using the ceramic discs, from what I learned. I guess with the membranes, it doesn't work too well. But then again, with municipal and industrial, you really have two different types of environments. With municipality, you kind of know what you're dealing with, but with industrial, it could be any type of chemicals that's in that water. So you really have to be careful if you're going to do an acid clean with that. Is that acid going to interact with something that company uses within their process, and that chemicals in the water. So that you have to be careful of. In a lot of the municipalities, they'll also use a crane to actually go in and lift up that whole diffuser structure and bring that up to the surface. And that's your best way to be able to maintain it. You'll be able to get a crane in there, lift it right up, and pull it out. And it was interesting because there's 3 companies on the call, and they all make diffusers. And they talked about maintenance, and they all shook their head and started to laugh because they always recommend what maintenance to do for the diffusers when they go to a municipality, and all the municipality guys say, "Yep, okay, that's what we're going to do." But maintenance doesn't really happen on these. So again, I think you install it and it gets put in the bottom of your tanks, and it's almost there. Well, you know what? It's working. Let's not mess with it. But there are some advances in these diffusers as well. There was one company that is coming out with a brand new one. It's not even on the market yet. He kind of showed it off in the distance and held it up behind his head, and all the other presenters were oohing and ahhing over this diffuser. And I guess what the difference was, most of them are pretty standard. They just have some slits in there to let the air go out. But this one actually had cuts around the outer rim. So they're kind of changing the way the air gets diffused. And I don't know, I thought that was kind of fascinating because, new technology, applying different types of processes to a small little simple device like that, just changing the airflow to have that, have the bubbles perform a little bit different. It reminds me of, I'm a big follower of America's Cup racing, the yacht racing. And if you look at the history of those boats, I mean, now they don't even sit in the water. If you go and Google the latest video on them, I mean, they're flying. They don't call it sailing anymore. They call it flying. Because basically the only part that's in the boat, that's in the water, is what I used to call the rudder. They probably don't even call it that anymore. So
the foils.
My terminology if I'm talking to one of my yachtsman friends. But it reminds me of that, just different technology you're using. So again, it's a very old technology, these diffusers, but they are introducing new stuff to it.
Wow, that's great. You covered a lot of ground there.
Great, yeah. So that actually, you've done a great job. You took us right to the end of your segment there as well. Yeah. So Tim, well done. You brought a lot of information. Thanks for doing that. You're going to be back on in just right around an hour and a half. Is that true?
I am. I think I have another show report coming up.
Excellent.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Actually talk
you
about,
do, yep. So you're going to be on even sooner than that. So so we'll be talking to you multiple times today.
That's what I'll be talking about then. I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Okay, right, thanks, Tim.
Good.
Bye now.
See you in a bit.
Tim, of course, is the sales contact for the Northeast United States region, and he's based out of Boston, or just south of Boston. And now it is time for...
Cool.
And now I believe we have Nat back. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm here. I missed you guys.
And Nat, are you wearing a wig like Keith's hair?
No, I'm not wearing a wig. I have my own natural pink, orange, and yellow hair on today, so no wigs necessary.
Excellent. What was I going to say?
So I want to just start by saying we do have some breakout sessions coming on at 3 p.m. We got version control with Alan, and we have keeping your system operational 24/7 with Pat. The links are in the YouTube chat as well as all the other regular places, our website, social media, WEFTEC Connect app. So they're all there. So after this question segment, make sure that you check out either version control with Alan or keeping your system operational 24/7 with Pat. And let me go ahead and get into some questions. How do I get security patches?
You just stay up to date with VTScada support. We release the patches and the new features and the actual contact with our support team. It's all part of the same package. It's optional. If you don't want to pay for support or anything, you could buy VTScada, never give us another cent, and run that software forever. But if you do want to be able to upgrade to the latest version, which includes all of the latest security patches, then you would just choose to opt into the support, which actually is a nice. We kind of included that in our conversation earlier about bulk pricing, and in a sense, support is bulk pricing, because if you choose to keep your support current indefinitely, that means that you will continue to pay 15% of the original price every year, not the price adjusted for inflation. So that means the longer you stay current, the cheaper your support will become.
That's right. And with that, you get the support, you get the tech support, you get the ability to upgrade to the latest version at any time. And with that comes the new features and everything else that go along with those. So it is a really great deal for people who've invested. It really doesn't take that long. You think about how pricing moves. In 5 years, you're going, oh, that's nice. In 10 years, you're going, wow, that's great. And in 20 years, well, now it's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. We have some people who are in the fantastic range. And just another
quite a number, actually.
It's true. What was I going to say? There was another aspect to that. Oh, I know. In terms of security patches, for a lot of people, their systems are so operating system dependent, like version of your operating system, they're locked in. They're like, it works, don't touch it, don't run any updates, disable all that stuff. So you've got this system that hasn't run a Windows security patch in years because you don't want to break your system. Whereas VTScada, we think about that entirely differently. We encourage people to run we use the latest version of VTScada all the time with the latest version and the latest Windows updates. We run them all. We have to as a company policy, because we want to be able to spot those issues.
That's right. Yeah, and it's a great point. And actually, another one I should make is, because a lot of people get into this where they might have one server that's running Windows Server, and they've got another, like an operator who maybe is doing some development or something. They might be running Windows 10 Home on their computer. And in VTScada's redundant systems and having different clients and different people contributing to the system, you can have VTScada servers that are connected to one another running multiple different versions of Windows. So as a differentiator from some other systems where oftentimes if you're running your whole SCADA system on Windows 7, then you want to move it to Windows 10, then everything has to move in one piece. Like I say, is VTScada for the most part is running between those, as long as the version you're using is supported by the different versions of Windows. But for most of them, all the latest versions go actually quite a ways back.
And Dave, are you able to show people quickly where on our website they can sign up to get those
updates,
those version release notices?
Yeah, I can do that. Just give me 1 second here. I'll share my screen, and hopefully you're looking at some. Yeah, I don't know exactly what this is. Yesterday I had penguins. It was nicer.
And along with where Dave is going to show you to sign up to get an email notification for version releases, they are always put on all of our social media channels as well. So make sure that you follow us on the one that you use to get your business information, whether that's Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. All four will get the notification when new versions go out.
That's right. So you can go to VTScada.com and just click the version notices button, and a couple quick pieces of information here, and that will go off to you. So if you are looking to see the different versions that are out, you can always also go to our website, down in the resources in the download VTScada, and you can say select a version, and you can see all of the different version 12 things here. And if you were to go to our FTP site, then you can see even more information. Because if I go into the VTScada 12 versions, then there's things like PDFs in here that show the changes between versions. So you can always look at that change document to see what was added.
Perfect. And I think I can get in another one.
Sure.
Somebody would like to know how we handle hot backup and failover.
Very well. So that's one of the things that the VTScada does. That's one of our key differentiators. You know, we talk about this from a variety of different angles. In many ways, this whole live stream is different ways to tell this very story, and that is because VTScada is all built in. Basically, you install it once, and you have all of those features built around our enterprise historian and our change history log. That means that if you add another redundant server, and we've done this in presentations as sort of our high diving act, we've actually done it through our VPN, Dave and I, from our two different homes, and you can actually have one server running the application and then another server that just has VTScada installed. Basically, by making a dozen clicks, you can reach through the network, select the running application on the other computer, and then in just a few, like maybe a minute or two, it pulls all of the files for that application onto the new server, sets it up as a redundant server, and then all you need to do is go into the server list and decide which one of those computers is the primary and which one is the backup, and then basically you're done. You don't have to write a single line of code. It's all drag and drop, click, click, click.
Yeah, so the only two things you need to get that done are you need to know the computer name for those computers, and you need to have an administrative login credential.
Sounds good. I think that's all I have for questions now. I'm going to be back in an hour. So make sure that you get your questions in the chat, on the side, on the WEFTEC app, wherever you want to pose your questions for Chris and Dave.
Great. Speaking of back in an hour, I'm actually going to I'm going to back out and leave you in the capable hands of Blair Sooley, who I think is on the line right now.
All right, Chris, enjoy your breaks. Well deserved. It's been a long day so far. And Blair, we've got you on the line there. How's it going?
How you doing?
Great.
Look at that. I actually unmuted myself this time before speaking.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. Is that's a 2020 problem. No, it wasn't very common in my past life that I tried to have a conversation with somebody and realized I was muting and just moving my mouth.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably happened 100 times in the last couple of days.
That's right.
Yeah,
so
it's happened to me like 3 times. So yeah. Anyway, so the day is going well.
The day's going well. Yeah. How's your day been?
Very busy. Yeah.
Right. Good.
It's
busy is
just like yours. I see. I've seen Keith's studio, which is quite the spectacular thing.
Right. Yep. So, Blair, we're in a segment right now called Off the Cuff, and the piece for this is all failovers not equal. So, at this point. Cool. So at this point, you and I are going to discuss, VTScada failover versus the failover that people are probably used to dealing with. So it's going to be that, cold standby versus hot standby versus VTScada's offering.
Okay.
So why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction into some of those differentiators, and I'll carry on with you.
Okay, so there's kind of cold, warm, and hot standby methodologies. Cold would be if you have a couple of servers and one of them is live, communicating with all of your equipment, doing everything it needs to. The other one sits on a shelf somewhere. It's basically a backup of your application that can be run at any time, but is by no means updated with the latest information on your system. It doesn't have your latest historical data, doesn't have your latest alarms, doesn't have your latest configuration. And if you've made changes, none of that would be copied over to the cold side. Warm is slightly better in that you have a periodic update rate. You have a running computer as your backup, and that backup can sit there in a ready to take over state, but it has a copy of your application, a copy of your data, a copy of your alarms that are not synchronized in real time with your data set. And in the event that the primary computer goes down, you will put this second one on, usually manually. Well, it would be manually, you'd put it online, and it would be able to do all the same features, but it would be outdated in its functionality and its data set. So you might run a trend on a data point and find that it's missing the last week of data, let's say, or the last day, based on when you last updated it. Hot standby is the ability to automatically fail over. One computer just simply takes over for the other as soon as it recognizes through some continuous link between the two computers that the primary computer is no longer running. The backover just simply takes over and starts doing what it needs to do. And it takes over not only the functionality, but has a complete data set that is fully synchronized and is missing no information. So that's kind of the three different options: cold, medium, and hot standby.
Right. Okay, perfect. So and if you see me looking down here, I'm just getting a few things ready. I'm just making a couple changes to my network settings so that hopefully we can do a real live demonstration of this for you in a few minutes. So right, so the VTScada difference is the idea of synchronization, right? So the key piece there being that you've got one server, two servers, 10 servers. You don't really care, and you're not dealing with the hot versus cold, cold versus whatever. It's the idea that everything is synchronized all the time. And actually, we've got a lot of customers who have seen some of what's going on with VTScada, and they're using it in a different way. They're using it in the sense of this whole idea of drive-by SCADA. So it's very intermittent. So you may have somebody even showing up to a site and they've got their laptop in the truck and they're going into a well site or whatever it is, and they're able to synchronize with the SCADA system at that site when they pull up, get the data, bring everything, and all of that then gets updated to a site that didn't have a communication protocol. So then that laptop ends up somewhere else and syncs back to another server with that application. So we've seen this in different areas with intermittent communication where they say, okay, I'm connected now, everything syncs, and then they're disconnected. And so they're actually using the VTScada protocol, the VTScada synchronization, as actually part of their communications there, because it's backfilling all the data that's missing and not just doing a complete copy of the historian. It's only filling in what was missing in between.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. That's neat. That's good use of the functionality. We've seen a lot of synchronization methodologies being used lately, in particular for cybersecurity functionality. I mentioned a little earlier, such that you would have your high security SCADA side, and then you would have those high security SCADA servers feeding a third server that's sitting outside the SCADA network on a lower security level, might be a business or an enterprise level security. And users on those networks can then access in real time a set of data. So it's essentially acting as a fully redundant backup server, but it will never perform as an I/O server. It's just using the same synchronization methodology. So it's a very versatile functionality. And
that's right.
I'd like to point out something that Keith usually mentions, and that's the idea of event-driven updates, as opposed to a polling method where you have your backup server that's polling on a regular basis to see if there are data sets that it's missing that need to be updated. You use the event-driven mechanism to push data changes. So I have a value that has not changed for 20 minutes. There's no reason to pull it every few seconds from the backup server to see if it's changed. That's typical of most SCADA systems. In our case, as soon as that value changes, we push it out and say there's been a change to that value, and then it gets updated on the backup. So much more efficient.
Right. Yeah. So, and for somebody who's used to dealing with that SQL server in the background, we talked about this earlier today, but we're assuming that not everybody listening has been on with us all day. So I do want to say as well that the way that we have our historians set up is they can make those SQL queries and other things to the database. And Blair, did you want to tell them a little bit about our newest way to do that, REST?
Oh, actually, that's you. You tell us all about that one. You know more about REST than I
I'll
do.
defer back to Blair to maybe talk about the ODBC then afterward.
Sure.
So we've got the new REST, the REST interface into that historian. So you can put that historian either on your network and connect to it. You can put it in a DMZ where you can say it's not possible, even if somebody were to get control of this computer, whatever it is, for them to come in and make any changes back into the network. But the REST interface itself is allowing somebody to basically have a URL, and that URL has the SQL query in it, and it's asking for data from the VTScada historian. So it's and then they get authenticated that they're able to get that data. And from there, the data comes back. It's paginated, so it's very very efficient in the way that it's packaging the data and then sending it out, and it comes back in JSON format. So it's very cool in that you can actually bring it back and through. And I've actually had one site where you had a hydro station and some renewables locations, and the hydro station's production was dependent on what the renewable stations were doing. So, but they were actually different owners. So they're segregated systems, and the hydro station is able to use REST to query the other stations. It can't connect to those apps or make changes or do anything, but it's able to get their production numbers and determine how much power the hydro station needs to be generating. Because the hydro station, generally speaking, is very predictable, whereas the wind for the day or the amount of sunlight that's in a solar array becomes much more variable. So they're able to work with that and create a very balanced system. This is for a remote system that had very few things, and so the hydro station was really a key part of their power supply. And worst case, they fall back to a generator where they really don't want to be running that when they don't need to.
That's impressive.
So yeah, it was cool. And like I say, as being REST, it actually is a very easy way for them to then give a very safe connection between these systems that are actually being managed by different groups.
So there's a security element to the REST interface, which is quite different than the ODBC type of SQL queries that we're used to. Is it not?
Yeah, like I say, REST is definitely read only. So, and it's into the historian. So
and it uses a SSL certificate. Am I right?
It can, yes, yeah.
Gotcha.
It doesn't actually have to. But it definitely, if you're putting it on the internet as opposed to using a VPN to connect those sites, then certainly it's something you would like to do.
Gotcha. Okay.
So next up, Blair, we're going to do a high dive. So Keith Q bumper. Cool. And if you watch that bumper, by the way, it's my head and Chris's body, so that's interesting. So Blair, you can't see it, but you'll tune in later, I'm sure, to go see that picture of
kind of a Lego
Chris's body, my head doing a dive into a shallow pool. So yeah, so I'm going to bring up my screen to do some sharing here. So
okay.
And then Blair, you'll be able to see. Let's bring data application here, and as I alluded to earlier, I made a couple changes earlier. I was using my local IP address to reference where the drivers were coming from. I'm going to update that, and I hope it will work to not my 127.0.0.1, but my actual IP address on the VPN here. So okay. I've got another computer. I don't know for sure if it will be able to connect to me or not, but I'm going to try to do that. So I've got my hydro station here, and let's actually try to snap this guy over a little bit. I'm going to make him even a little smaller than this. Oh, Skype came back.
Love that resize.
Skype. So I've got my hydro station here, and I'm going to have my other server here. So we're going to do a failover demo.
For anyone who's watching,
so the first thing that I need
cool
to
the way Dave just resized his screen, and it automatically resized to whatever the resolution of the interface that he has. So very helpful if you got multiple screens up or different resolutions on your various screens in your application.
Yeah, it's funny. It's the small things that we don't even think about anymore. So what you're looking at here is a remote desktop into another computer. And I'm just going to go to advanced here, get from workstation, and I'm going to hope that I can do name resolution. Can we do it? All right, so here I've actually connected in from this remote computer that is at our headquarters in Bedford. I've connected back out to my house here, and I'm looking at my applications. So this is the Mountain City Hydro Station. So that's this guy right here. So
Dave lives at a hydro station, in case anyone's wondering.
And, oh, I need credentials, right. Dave. So always a good thing is you need that administrative level credential to be able to grab an application. So with a little bit of luck, this will come across. Like I say, as I'm doing this over a VPN, and this demo is actually in a little bit of a DMZ, so I'm not 100% sure if this will go totally flawlessly. If not, then Blair, are you on the VPN by chance?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So if this doesn't work, then we may want to just do it between our computers. And oh no, it looks like it found a. It looks like it did find a path here.
Okay. How much historical data you got over there? Because it's pulling all of it now, I assume. Are you both on? You got both of them on as servers?
It is pulling all of it. I'm hoping there's not that much on here.
Probably collecting data at about once per second for a couple of hundred.
So while this is happening, I'm going to go through on this computer here, and I'm going to do some configuration. And we're going to go into the edit server list here. So you can see it's populated with my computer name. So I'm just going to click that to say, make this guy the primary server. And the other one is VTS Demo 2. And we're going to set that up to be the backup server. So if I click apply, then I've set that up. So I'm the primary, VTS Demo 2 is the backup.
Okay.
So the next thing I'm going to do is just run into the trace viewer. Oh, not that trace viewer. I wanted my own trace viewer. The next thing here, I'm going to run up and grab the trace viewer here. And in this case, we're just going to quickly take a look at the RPC diagnostics. And there's going to be lots and lots going on. So, and we'll look at the services. So you see all the applications that are running here are running myself as a service, but you can see here there's some things running VTS Demo 2 as a service as well. So right now things are still getting synchronized across here. So it looks like I'm running into some bandwidth issues between the two computers. Do we want to continue logging? No, I do not. So the hydro station here, are we running? I may have a screen issue here because it looks like it is actually running the application, but I can't see it on this remote desktop.
Yeah, you have it open on the second screen by the looks of it.
Yeah, it looks like that may be open on another screen. So I'm just gonna stop this guy quickly and start him up in another minute here, just to see if I have a little better luck getting him on this screen. This VTS Demo 2 had its had Windows reinstalled on the weekend, so it sort of threw me through a little bit of a loop, whereas I don't know what it looks like anymore. So if we go into the server list here, some other things. So I showed you sort of the basic server list. So this means I'm the primary server. This is the backup server. If my computer were to get hit by a nuke, then it would just automatically fail over to the backup server and everything would carry on.
You could be the last of your worries. Dave, can you just tell me what your name of your computer is, and I'll do a quick.
Yeah, it's right here, RDS XPS.
RDS XPS. Okay. Okay. A lot of activity going on your computer at the moment.
There's certainly a lot. Yeah, so
I'm going to leave that rather than grinding through your network there and grinding through the VPN at the same time. So,
all right, I'm gonna drop off of VTS Demo 2, and maybe we'll do this through sharing then. So, and I'm going to take VTS Demo 2 out of the list here. So Blair, yeah, if you want, you can grab that application from me. And while you're doing that, I'm going to show
I'm not able to connect to your computer at the moment. So.
Oh, do you want my IP address?
We could try that.
Sure. We just have a couple minutes left here, so it would be nice to see that failover. It's 192.
Hold on, just a second. I'm getting there. Get from workstation. Okay. All right. 192.
It's 192.168.113.6.
3.6. Okay. Well, looks like I'm not able to see you in the list. No. So either one of us must not be able to network with one another. It's probably firewalled. It's likely my firewall.
Right. Yeah, it could be. I can, because yeah, I'm able to see Chris's computer there. So anyway, so if we were to do the failover, basically anything that happens to my computer, all these services would move over to the other computer. But I should go to the advanced mode here, and in the server list, you can set up these server lists. So you can see I've got it set up here, so just for myself. But you can actually set up server lists for each of your drivers, for each of your services. So you could have your thin client server fail over to one area, whereas you could have the driver for a certain device fail over to another area, driver for a different device fail over to a different area again. So we just got another minute there. Do you have anything you wanted to add there for the redundancy, Blair?
Well, I'll give you an example of where we're doing exactly what you're referring to. We've got an application running at a drainage district here in Texas. And for that one, we've got centralized servers that are the primary servers for the application. And then at each one of 5 of their pumping stations, we have designated a local VTScada node as the local server, which is able to collect all the data as the primary. It then synchronizes its data back to the central. So in the event that we lose the main network VPN between each of these sites, all 5 of the pump stations can run as completely autonomous units. Each one also has a backup alarm notification as well. So these sites are able to generate anywhere, or able to pump anywhere between 800,000 and 1 million gallons per minute. So pretty intense stations. They're meant to keep the ocean out as we get hurricanes that come in here. Right. So in that case, you've got 5 different servers that are primarily the server for their own I/O points, and then they fail over to a primary central and a backup central as well. So using that methodology you've just shown.
I'm just going to stop the share there so I can get back on track with what's in the schedule here. So Blair, I guess, yeah, I'm just looking at this. It looks like it's you and I. So you're talking about a job in Houston there. And we wanted to talk a little bit more with you about Houston itself. It's sort of Blair's road to success in Houston. I mean, it's been, things have really kind of taken off since we got you down there in Houston. And tell us a little bit about what it's like, and then we'll go into a video there of you in Houston.
Yeah, well, it's hot. That's the primary differentiator between there and everywhere else in the world, I think. It's coming from Nova Scotia. It was quite the change in culture and everything else, for that matter. But so we already had a good set of installations here, foundation installations here, and probably maybe a half a dozen integration companies that were selling. Came down in mid-2016, and from there we spent a lot of time just meeting all of these new integrators, and there are an enormous number of integrators in Texas, as you can imagine, with the big oil and gas industry and water and wastewater and manufacturing, everything else. So we brought a lot of them on board. I believe right now we have about 40 integrators from Texas area, and quite a number of which are quite active, and we're up to about 200 installations in Texas in the utilities industry, water and power as well.
Great.
And then Houston itself, the city has decided to use VTScada for its northeast water purification plant, which started as an existing 80 MGD plant and is now adding on 320 MGD of surface water. So it's going to be switching from ground to surface water. Yeah.
Great. So I think we've got a video to play of you in the Automation Village here. So.
Great. Welcome to Houston. I'm Blair Suley. I'm with the VTScada office in Spring, Texas, and I'd like to invite you to take a few minutes to enjoy our fair city, at least through some pictures of mine. This is me. Well, this is actually me. I don't normally wear a cowboy hat, and this is not typically my cat. Many of you think of Houston as an industrial town, all of the oil and gas facilities and lots of manufacturing, and it is exactly that. But it's also this. Lots of wonderful places to go and to hang and have nice meals and such in the downtown quarter. And you have beaches. This is down around the Galveston area. Houston has many lakes with lots of water. Most of these are man-made. In fact, almost all of the lakes in Texas are man-made, other than one that I know of. They also have venomous snakes and poison ivy. But they also have the Space Center, which most of you are familiar with. Lots of opportunities for the family to go down and enjoy our nice Space Center and see the Canadarm over there in the right-hand corner. The zoo, fantastic. Again, poisonous frogs, but other than that, fantastic. And this is the Renaissance Festival. The Renaissance happens north of Houston, and it even has an Elvis. Everything has an Elvis. If you're into history, you can visit the San Jacinto Monument and explore the birthplace of Texas. And you also have access to a battleship if you'd like to go on and pretend you're a gunner like my dad is here. This is the Texas Rodeo, and a good opportunity for kids to go down and see all kinds of animals, including a wallaby, which is probably not a local. Lots of outdoor barbecues. Lots of barbecues out in the parking lots as well. This is Texas. It's very easy going. And this is what was being barbecued. The snakes. There's scientific advancements happening all in the downtown quarter from the medical district. In this case, they're milking snakes and using this for antivenom. And Houston has weather. We have snow at times. We have boiling heat during the summer. And we have some lovely days where we have essentially created additional waterfront for people like myself, which eventually goes away. But during those events, everyone drinks all the milk, eats all the meat, and the dogs hide under blankets. And people put crazy things on their vehicles. You'll notice that Houston is very, very flat, so I'm not sure exactly what the intent of these were for. Houston is known for its culinary options. This is one of them. There are about 11,000 restaurants in Houston and a lot of breweries. And of course, hunting, fishing, outdoorsmen, very, very common in this area. And if you ever need to stop for gas, just find a Buc-ee's. That's the Beaver. About 120 pumps at this particular gas station. This is an example of the type of things that we get here in Texas. Plus we get big steaks. So here you can have a steak with a side of steak. And unlike most big cities, Houston has the opportunity to ride horses. So this is me with my family riding through one of our local parks not too far from our house. Lots of car shows. And there's some interesting fashion in the city. The concert scene is quite significant in Houston. This is an outdoor concert, and this is a tailgating event for an indoor concert to follow. Huge opportunity for theater and concert type events. And this is our theater group. This is youth and youth opportunities to play in bands, such through School of Rock. Here's that same theater group singing for the Astros at the opening. And of course, we've got the Rockets and the Texans. Of course, football's huge in Texas. These are some of the great food items made in Texas, not necessarily all in Houston, but still, we eat them in Houston, so that's something. And just remember, if you're one of those guys that needs a set of horns for his vehicle, you can also still attach them to a motorcycle, and that's okay. And again, don't forget about the snakes and the other insects in the area. But thankfully we have little fellas whose backpacks are also packing. So have a great time in Houston, and please feel free to give me a call anytime you want to hear more about VTScada or about the city. Take care. Bye.
All right, so joining us for the show report is going to be Tim Donaldson again. How's it going, Tim?
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Doing well.
Hey, Blair, how are you?
Good, Tim. How's things?
Good, good. Yeah, so I actually sat in on a session last night. I watched the movie, the Brave Blue World movie, which was really interesting. I'm glad, though, that it did end before the Patriots game came on, though. So I was a little nervous that I was going to have to double dip there and watch the Patriots.
Get your priorities right.
And watch the movie, but the timing worked out perfect. So yeah, it was really good. It was about obviously, people saving water and making more water available across the world. And they went around the world and talked a lot about different technologies that are being used. And I'll highlight a few of those. One of them called the water box. And think of it as, you go to your supermarket or your grocery store and you can fill up a jug of water. It's usually spring water that they bring in. But this water box is, you can put it in a contaminated area or a place that doesn't have safe drinking water. It takes that water, cleans it, and then makes that available. So it's not trucking in new water. It's using the water that's at the location. It just needs to be purified. They used this in Flint, Michigan, is where it was first used. And now they're saying that they can take that, and obviously that was lead that they had to get out of the water, but they can change the inner workings of the box to make it available for any type of contaminated water. So that was pretty cool technology. Another one called Magic, M-A-J-C-K, not how you would normally spell magic. And this one actually pulls water molecules from the air and purifies it and makes it available for drinking water. So really, really fascinating stuff. And I think that's being used. That might have been over in Kenya. I'm not quite sure where that was. I don't quite remember. So those were two that I thought were pretty fascinating. Do you guys want to comment on those? Or, I have a couple more I can talk about as well.
Actually, you mentioned about the drinking water there and reusing it in the areas and filtering it. I watched an interesting one yesterday also about the water in Toledo and how it was filled with the algae. They had this massive algae blooms which were generated by local ag in the area, all kinds of runoff. And it was all the phosphorus that caused these algae blooms to come in. And I was just thinking about that same methodology of the amount of filtration they would have to do on site. So if they had the ability to filter that out on site and return it, that would be just fantastic. They are doing something on a bigger scale for a whole bunch of different utilities, but really interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. You talked about the algae. There was one, just looking at my notes real quick, in Spain, where they're actually taking wastewater and algae inside the wastewater. They're taking the algae out and converting that to energy. And they're actually taking it and making it available for cars. So there's a small project that they're doing that with, which I thought was interesting. I know in the spring, I mentioned this earlier, my pool always has a lot of algae in the spring when I open it up. I live in the Northeast. I'm unlike Blair down in Texas, which his pool's open year round. I have to close mine up, and when you do that, when you open it, there's a ton of algae. So I always say, geez, how can I take that algae and convert that into some energy? That would be great.
You could have a self-contained house.
Next year. What's that?
Totally self-contained house. Your own energy system. You could dry it out. You could eat the algae. You know, you get a whole different. You get a whole 360 possibility there.
Yeah. I mean, you must be reading my mind because you're segueing right into the next segment. So another one talking about home use was in the Netherlands. There's a box called the Hydro Loop, and this is a box that you can purchase for your home. And you're not taking algae, but you're taking your wastewater and cleaning it and using it for your lawn or to wash your clothes, things like that. Not drinking water. They didn't mention it for drinking or bathing or cooking. They mentioned it for everything else, you know, outside car washing and things like that. So, you know, I thought about that. I said, geez, that would be a nice little box. But then I thought about the plumbing that you're going to have to do inside your house to separate things. I said, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, that is something that's being done a lot on cruise ships now. They've got reasonably complex they've got their black water, which is black water, but some of their gray water, like I say, does get recycled and repurposed on those ships. So
they must be doing a fair bit of desal on those ships as well, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're doing for bringing the water in, but I know that recycling some of that water or reusing some of that water after it's been treated. So water treatment on cruise ships has become a big thing.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, it's a big area. I looked at a lot of those different technologies and said, you know, there's automation with each and every one of those aspects. So, I mean, there's just, you know, there's an untapped market there for these innovators and these forward-thinking people that can come up with these boxes. And of course, they're going to need automation to go along with that. So that's where companies like Trihedral Engineering comes into play. There was another solution that was done over in Kenya. It's a whole service that's being done, and it's very similar to here in the States, where if you don't have town sewer, you have a septic tank, and they come and they pump out your septic tank, and away goes the material. And so you can't just, you know, it doesn't just go to your wastewater facility. Well, they don't have that infrastructure, or they don't have that means to do that over in Kenya. So there's a service where the company will deliver a toilet to a home, and before that, in that town, they may only have one toilet for 5 or 6 homes. So this is being, you know, it's more sanitary now. So each home gets their own toilet, and he comes once a week and takes away the waste, cleans it, takes away the waste, but then he takes that waste and he turns it into charcoal.
Really?
Charcoal that you would use for, regular charcoal briquettes. You know, I don't know if I'd want to eat something that was cooked with it, but, you know, but then charcoal could be used for fuel too. So maybe that's what they're doing with it. They didn't go into that level with it, but, you know, I didn't see the word Kingsford on there or anything like that. So I think I'm safe for now. But that name of that company is called Sanovation, which I thought was really, really interesting. You know, it's really forward thinking.
Just you'd mentioned before about the monitoring possibilities, and obviously that's where we're interested in. Right. But the situation I was talking about with the blooms, they've used a new technology to bring all that data, all those data points in, which I thought was really interesting. It's called LoRaWAN, LoRaWAN, and the idea behind LoRaWAN is it's a low voltage, a low power interface that's a concentration point that brings in a bunch of data points from, it's probably using some type of IoT type of interface, brings that into this concentrator, and then uses cellular to send that back to a centralized monitoring system like VTScada. At which point that same data set is then redistributed in the summary of all these concentrators out to a whole bunch of scientific groups that are analyzing it but also the farmers to indicate how much phosphorus is in the water and therefore is being essentially wasted. So they're trying to create a rate of return equation with these farmers to realize how much of this might be recuperable and therefore reduce the cost of their farming. So anyway, I just had to point that out. I was looking for the info when you were talking.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's really interesting that if you can learn about something like this and then apply it to something we're doing, it just makes it that much more enjoyable. So that was a lot of, for municipalities or for home, but they're also looking at ways to take industrial wastewater as well and converting that. L'Oreal, the cosmetic company, they have plants that they call their dry factory, 100% dry factory. And what that means is they don't rely on any outside water to do their clean in place, which clean in place is obviously you got to clean your tanks or your mixer bowls when you're mixing up different cosmetics. So they have their own reuse of water. So they're able to clean the water through some technology they've built to repurpose that water. And other companies are looking at doing that too. Other industries, there's a textile company in India that's looking to do it. So really, really cool stuff. And the bottom line is, think different, take action. So, we can think of ways to reserve water in everything we do every day. I mean, I looked at that and picked up a few tips as well. But that whole video that I watched, it was really good. It's going to be on Netflix on October 21st. So if anybody wants to catch that, they're able to catch it on Netflix. The producer of it came on at the end of it, and he just heard about that today or yesterday, and he was really excited that it got selected for that. And of course, there's the Boston-owned Matt Damon is starring in the video, which is really good, and music by U2. So I mean, you got Matt Damon, you got U2. It doesn't get any better, right? And they're talking about water, so I definitely check it out. October 21st. Mark your calendars.
Of course, the one thing you don't have anymore is Brady. So there is that.
I think I'm going to disconnect now.
I was going to say, with that, we'll let Tim salt his bird there. And so, Tim, we'll see you in an hour, though. You'll be coming in just as Blair's heading out. So you've got a little bit of, or sorry, not an hour, half an hour here. So you got 30 minutes to come up with your comeback for Texas.
Yeah, that's not hard. Just I mean, I think we have a few more rings, so that's all you got to look at.
Well, you actually have more wins because this year we've got none. So
yeah, you don't have a coach either right now either. I heard.
There is that. Who needs a coach?
All right,
those plays write themselves. Anyway, all right. See you, Tim. And so. Coming up, we'll be going into our next mini piece, which will be Alan Hudson. And Alan's going to be telling us a little bit about alarm management in VTScada. So we're going to bring back Alan Hudson, who's going to do a exquisite and detailed demo on alarm management.
Yeah, I am. You give me 10 minutes to give a mini part, right? So, yeah.
This exquisite mini.
Exactly. Alarm notification is actually, in management rather, is one of my passions. I've had the pleasure over the last 4 or 5 years now of giving a number of presentations at ISA or WEFTEC or AWA or my local trade shows on just the kind of thing I'm going to talk about here in the next few minutes. And the reason why it's such a passion for me is I go back to the days I call us gray hairs, no hairs. If you can still see me, by the way, us gray hairs, no hairs. Those have been in the business for quite a while. What we have been a struggle with for many, many years, in fact, the very first project I ever did in Tennessee had this big alarm annunciator on a mosaic panel. And I'll never forget being in the, this is about my first project startup, by the way. And I'm in this control room, and I'm watching this, the operators do their thing, and the alarm goes off, this light flashes, the guy goes over and presses the button. I'm so impressed. And so 3 or 4 minutes later, the same alarm goes off. goes over and presses the button, the light goes solid, and he's like, okay, I guess this, alarm, and in this case it was a turbidity alarm. He says that thing's been stuck for a while. It's probably going to go off again. And sure enough, it goes off again another 3 minutes or so later. So what does he do? He goes over and pulls out that little annunciator board about 1/8 of an inch. Lo and behold, no more alarms, which was fantastic as far as he was concerned. It was not so good as far as running the plant was concerned. And that was my first entry, I guess, 30 years ago into alarm management and how to take care of that appropriately. So, are you seeing my screen?
So actually, Alan, we can only see the VTScada in the background there. We can't see the page in the foreground. So are we just looking at the page menu right now?
You are, yes.
Okay, all right, let's carry on then. I think it might be okay. Perfect. It's just come up.
So just a quick thing, and we'll go through this a little further later on. But if I look at this water treatment folder, for example, we now have 4 live screens of data coming in. So those that I think we have another a series or a breakout session on high performance graphics, on Idea Studio and those kind of things. So all of these graphics can be designed the way a customer would want them to see them. And so in my case, I can look over in this left-hand side under the overview, and I see not only an alarm banner at the bottom, but also this blinking red light. And if I click on that screen, I now have a better visualization of that screen. I can see my alarms a little bit more closely here. If I look at this, we can see that it's a category of a 1, and it's red, and it's a diamond. That all has to do with ISA 18.2 alarm management standards. Again, a little more discussion for later on. But what the VTScada lets me do with this is I could actually right-click on that little flashing light, and now I can do a variety of things with that alarm. I mean, I can go straight to the properties. I can look at the alarm settings and those kind of things right from the screen. But that's for a different conversation. Just for the mini session for the moment, I got about 6 minutes. I'm going to go to the top right-hand side. So in my world, I would probably, if I'm designing a screen or I'm the operator or manager, I might not care about this alarm banner at the bottom unless I want to use a realm area filtering to only show alarms that would be pertinent for this screen in this area of the plant. But I'm going to go to the top right-hand side where that alarm bell is blinking. It tells me I have some alarms there that are unacknowledged. If I simply click on that, I now have my alarm page. I notice there's a lot of red going on here, and the reason for that is I have a high turbidity warning of this going off on and on and on. This is my demo, so it is designed to do this. Please don't be too concerned. It's designed for this. But within this, I just want to show a couple of quick things of what alarm management techniques let someone do these days. For one thing, it lets us take care of the criticality of an alarm, or the priority perhaps. And so on the left-hand side, it shows that that is a priority of critical. So within ISA 18.2, we now have 5 levels of alarming. We have critical, which is the number 1. We have high, which is number 2. Both of those would declare something about either plant safety and or life safety and or process safety. And then, so a critical, then a high, and then we have 3 others, a warning, an event, and a notice. And so in the old days, what would happen is any alarm that would go off, let's just say that maybe we had a very low priority alarm go off for a low level, hey, somebody ought to go take a look at this thing in the next week. And yet, because of the way we defined alarms, it would still notify somebody at 2 a.m., which was not really appropriate. But if you had a chlorine leak at 2 a.m., clearly you want that to take place. So that's one of the things you would see here. The second thing is a reliable time date stamp. And within our world of alarm management, we could actually look at that and segment differently. How do we want to sort that and that kind of thing? We see what it is, active or normal. We can see the area that it may be located in if we chose to put that in as part of the tag. And then here's one for my turbidity high warning. And then some other descriptions as well. What this lets me do in a couple of different ways is this. So for example, I could take this active warning here and I could right click I could add a quick note to this and say maybe suspected false alarm. How about that? And so an operator with the right username, password, priority privileges could now type in a note. So again, they could say suspected false alarm, okay? And when they press add, what you'll see is on the right-hand side, we now have an indication of that note. That's very unique for us, but we think it's so important that an operator has the ability of putting that in. So watch this though. Let me go into my current alarms. Here's some things that we look at that I think are so powerful. Only got a minute and a half, I know that. So I'm looking at these alarms that are current right now. I could actually click on this reports and analysis and watch this. It's telling me that in the last 30 days, let me go to the last 10 days. It tells me that that pre-mixed turbidity alarm has gone off 39 times. So now let's say the plant manager comes in on a Monday and he sees his bad actors, as we call it, of alarms. They know what to go take a look at first. I can then look at my alarm flood and see when these things occurred. Well, clearly I'm running a demo here. But what I could do is, you can see that time block is what, a 4-hour span from 8 until 12. If I click on that, I now have it in 30-minute long blocks. Again, some of those tools and analysis that really make managing alarms very powerful. You can see up here, start date and end dates. I can actually change any of that around if I want to. I can look at a whole filtering area here, and I can now filter my alarms by certain descriptions or other areas or different dates and times and whatever. All of that becomes how I want to manage my alarms, to look at it more closely and make things happen. Let me finish out with one quick part here. It's my favorite part of our alarm management, and that would be shelving of alarms. So I started off with that story about the alarm annunciator and the guy pulling out that board 1/4 of an inch, or 1/8 of an inch rather. Let me take this same turbidity warning. I can right click on that and say, you know what, I'm going to shelve that. And you know what, George ought to go take a look at this suspected false alarm, and I'm going to shove it for 1 hour because he just stepped out to go browse the hall, and he'll be back in an hour. I press OK. I'll put a note in there of shelved while waiting on George. I think that's who I said. While waiting on George to return. And then lo and behold, I press add. It is now off of my current alarm list. George comes back from browsing the trade show hall. He can click on shelved. He can see every instance of an alarm that was shelved by an operator. In fact, in this case, it would say it was shelved by Alan under the user on the far right-hand side. And then here are the notes associated with that. So how cool is that you can now give complete control of alarm analysis into your operator level people. So I know I only had 10 minutes, but my time is up on that one. I will unshare my screen because you're probably saying, hurry up, Alan, get out of here. The elevator has long since stopped.
Yep. You're doing a great job, Alan. And next up, Chris and I will struggle to answer questions that will keep us our jobs. So I was quite happy if you were going to go through.
Hey, what I have found over the years is if you make things complex enough, nobody asks too many more questions.
There you go. All right, so after that great piece by Alan, we're into the questions with Natasha. So Blair, are you ready?
Absolutely. Let's bring him on.
All right, Natasha, hit us with those questions.
I will, but first I just want to say that we've got some breakout sessions coming up in about 10 minutes. We've got remote connectivity with Alan, we've got SCADA screen design and layout with Dan, and we've got keeping your system operational 24/7 with Pat. All the links are everywhere that you would think that they would be, in the YouTube chat, on the WEFTEC Connect platform, on our social media, our website. I can email you those links. So after the question period is done, make sure you check out one of those breakout sessions. And again, that was remote connectivity with Alan, SCADA screen design and layout with Dan, and keeping your system operational 24/7 with Pat. And straight into a question that Alan got from a breakout session is, if you silence an alarm on one computer, does it silence on the other computers?
Yes.
knows that acknowledge works that way, but wants to know about the silence.
Right. The answer is yes.
Yep. It silences on that. It silences, but mute will mute all alarms going forward. So you got to be careful how you use silence and mute. Silence silences the alarm, and then if another alarm occurs, it will come up as a live alarm, and you'll hear it. Mute will mute all alarms, and they will all be muted until you unmute. And that's particular for. Sorry, did we say on all computers?
The question was, if you silence an alarm on one computer, does it silence on the other computers?
Oh, sorry. No, in fact, it doesn't. It doesn't silence on all of them. I don't believe, Dave, does it? It's interesting. I've never heard that question.
I'm going to say that yeah, mute as or silence is just basically to say just silence what's happening right now, but not. And I think that is a per workstation thing.
Okay, that's thinking about this now, I believe you're right.
But the but if you were to say shelve or do something like that to an alarm, then that would be across the board.
Yeah, and mute would be the same. Mute would be just local, and in fact, mute is just local to the user that's logged on that particular station.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. So a few nuances there to be clarified. Next question. Now that we've muddied the waters, go ahead, Natasha.
Also from Alan's breakout session, can the alarms be filtered by date, areas, etc.?
Yes. So maybe this is a good one. Do you want me to grab control of as I see Keith getting queued up here? I'm going to do a screen share here, and I will bring up an application that we did get to the bottom of why you couldn't see those screens there in the other one. The server that I was connecting to, somebody had just turned it on for another demo to be set up and to be running as a service. So I would have had to, those applications were running and everything was working like you'd expect, but the actual visibility of the application would have had to be through a thin client. So anyway, jumping back to this, if we go into the alarms page here, you'll see there's this filtering up top here. So I'm just going to go to the history and we'll click filter here, and we can filter by description, by name. We can do in a certain area with a certain priority, by a user, an event, or a time period. So you can set all of that up. And so just as an example, I see a few pretty simple things here. So let's say with priority notice, and go OK. And then you'll see here that we've filtered down to just these items, which is priority notice, so we can cancel that. Now, that said, there are some pre-built filters on here, and you can just click through and see different alarms here. So here's the configured alarms, and if we were to shelve one or one was active, then they'd show up in these different lists here. Great, does that answer that?
Well, we'll have to wait for that person to chime back in, but I think it does.
All right. Fair enough.
All right, perfect. Also, somebody wants to know, can I use it with Dream Report? And I'm assuming that they mean it is VTScada.
That would be correct. Yeah, Dream Report has a connection into the VTScada historian. So you can select it from there. You get direct access to the entire list of tags in the hierarchical format that they are provided in. So Dave, if you wanted to bring up your screen there for a second again to show us that application, and just open your tag browser as an example, then you will see a structure of tags. Structure of tags is going to include a whole bunch of different I/O points. And as you dig in something like Dream Report or Excel Reporter or Crystal, well, not Crystal these days, but SAP's Business Intelligence or something like that, in those you would get a direct level, you get direct access to all of the tags. Here in Dream Report and Excel Reporter, you specifically get a list of hierarchical tags, so you can dig into the hierarchy and pick the tags you want to see. And then you can use them like any I/O points on your system.
Right.
On your reports, I should say.
Okay, moving right along. Thanks for that, Blair. Does VTScada work with Win911?
It can. By default, we have VTScada using our own internal alarm notification system. Win911 will read VTScada data through the OPC, I believe it's DA interface, which delivers real-time data out through OPC DA using DCOM. So if Win911 can be installed on the same computer. Sorry, my dog.
Do you have a dog, Blair?
There's the dogs. So with the data as you read it, you can generate an alarm on that with Win911. And those data points cannot be acknowledged back into VTScada. There is no bidirectional data transfer within that kind of a configuration. But there's a couple of nuances there. If using VTScada with a on a server, they both need to use the same account. So that's a key point of that. So worth making note of.
Okay, great. I think I can squeak another one in, and it is, what scripting language do you use?
Dave, you want to take that one?
Sure. We use the VTScada scripting language, which looks a little bit like this. So it's our own language, but it's pretty easy to learn and to work with. Like I say, VTScada Lite is a great place to download and get started trying to play around with some of the scripting. You can try some things. So we support modules. We have things like a built-in script tag. So on event in a PLC, you can run a module and have that work. Like I say, what I've got here is sort of a basic example. Where things are really kind of getting wrapped around in event-driven sequences. So all you really have to do is, so in this case, I'm saying if this is on, then basically perform this action. And I've got down here where on event, so I'm saying every 200 milliseconds, perform these tasks, which are all writing out to tags. And down here, I'm looking for keystrokes and basically saying, watch for these keystrokes. And the neat thing about VTScada is it's not actually squirreling through this as fast as possible. I've got this set so that we can actually, these things are just happening on the event. And when nothing's happening, then the system's running very, very little process usage. So anybody who wants can go into any page. And if we want, I can even grab a widget here. Just copy and go into Notepad. So I copied Control-C, Control-V into Notepad, and there, get back to that. There you'll see the code for that widget right there, just as text. So I could actually make changes to it if I wanted to, and paste those back right in here, and they'd appear as an object on the screen.
So you use the term object, and the VTScada does use an object-oriented scripting language for anyone who's questioning that.
Great. So I'm going to just stop my screen share there again. And
thanks, guys. I'll be back with one more question segment in 50 minutes.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank you,
Tasha. Great. And with that, I'm going to disappear for a while. And I think Tim is going to take my place, I guess. And we're going to have Chris come on to take Blair's place now. So right. Blair and I are off. So thanks very much, Blair, for all your help today. And we'll see you at some point tomorrow. And you guys will see me at some point tomorrow. So Chris and Tim, Godspeed to you guys.
Have a good night, guys. Enjoy.
Good night. Great job, everybody.
Thanks.
See ya.
Have fun.
Well, I'm glad to be back. Hi, Tim. How you doing?
Good, Chris. How are you?
Good. How's the last hour going? Did I miss anything exciting?
Oh, I did a nice show recap on
Nice.
On the movie Brave Blue Water, Brave Blue World. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's
I think you had mentioned that when you were on before.
Yeah, so yeah, you can actually catch it. It's going to be on Netflix coming up in a couple of weeks, so you'll be able to catch it there. But yeah, it was good. And besides that, I don't know. I kind of stepped away as well. So after my session, and I just jumped back on and listened to the last couple of questions from Natasha. And it was interesting. The last question was about scripting, and that kind of segues into what I think we're supposed to be talking about for a few minutes.
Yeah, that worked out nicely. So yeah, I think the topic that we're going to discuss for the next 10 minutes is this idea of dragging and scripting. So basically it all comes down to the Idea Studio. And if you've been listening for any period of time, or if you're familiar with VTScada at all, you already know about our Idea Studio. And that is basically our built-in native drag and drop interface for building screens. And you can use them to build screens of any kind of design methodology. So we're going to, before we even open anything up, I guess we should talk about sort of talking about scripting versus standard features, but before we get to that high diving act a little bit later. So there's in VTScada you have standard features and you've got a scripting language. So how do you know which one to use when, Tim?
Well, I will always take the pre-built widget over a script anytime.
It's a bit of a loaded question.
Yeah, but there is so much that we put into the product that, you know, applications that I've built before joining VTScada, and then any demo I've done since joining here, I haven't had to open up the scripting engine to do anything. Well, I shouldn't say that. We did do a little tweak with one aspect, but very, very little scripting. Most of the stuff is built in. However, the power is there if you want to go beyond what the standard widget can do. And Dave just showed a little bit of that, where he actually integrated he had a screen and he actually just popped right over to the scripting language, made a little tweak to it. That's the true power of it. And also, I did listen right around the lunchtime hour, well, lunchtime for me, and our president, Glenn Wadden, was talking about our scripting engine. And just the way he explains it, I just want to roll up my sleeves and get in and start doing some scripting. And I'm not a scripter, but it's nothing to be afraid of. It's very, very easy. I've taken the advanced training class with Victor, one of our engineers down in Florida, and we did a little scripting exercise, and it was just enough to get your feet wet with it. But it's easy to use. The power is there,
right.
And you're not going to break anything. That's the great thing. I mean, with our version control, you can't break anything with VTScada. So don't be afraid. Roll up your sleeves and dig in.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think the nice way to think about scripting is that you're using it for the kinds of customization that really should be highly specialized and highly special. Because really for VTScada to do the kinds of things that other platforms require scripting for, like for example, with other platforms, you'd have to do a ton of scripting to set up redundancy and synchronization or thin clients or trends for that matter. All of those things require a lot of upfront scripting by development people, whereas with VTScada, we've kind of built that into the base product. So when you install the thing, all of that's kind of done for you, and the process of setting up a redundant server is much more click, click, click. I think to actually do that requires less than 6 clicks.
I think you're right on.
Yeah, and so then you're reserving the act of scripting, because VTScada is also, as you sort of alluded to, infinitely customizable. But you really want to make sure that you're spending that investment of code, because you'll have to take care of that code into the future on the things that really matter, that are special.
Sure, and I always say, look at with VTScada. There's usually 3 ways to do something. So obviously, pick the easiest way to do it,
right.
And scripting's not scripting will get it done, but don't use that as your last resort, because most likely what you want to do, you're able to do it with some of the built-in features within the product, and you hit it right on the head with redundancy. Right. Again, it's 6 clicks, and you're set up. I mean, serverless and so forth, and I can remember writing those scripts with some other packages in the past life. So just something simple as redundancy. So I kind of cringed when you said that. The hairs on the back of my head. I remember those days. So.
Well, those built-in features are kind of like, I remember when I first was learning Photoshop, and I'm like, oh, why doesn't Photoshop do this? I wish Photoshop did that. And I went, oh, I bet you it does. And I just have to ask the right question, and of course it does. It does everything. So when in doubt, a lot of people have it in their minds, again, because of past experience, that things have to be done a certain way. But VTScada, it doesn't. So once you unlearn that, then you say, oh, okay, well, does it do? Oh, it does. It does that automatically. That's great.
And you know what I found about VTScada, and I'll be sitting at home and well, we're all sitting at home right now, but I'll be sitting not in my office, but maybe in the other part of the house, and I'll be thinking of something. I was like, geez, how do I do that? I want to talk about that tomorrow when I do this demo, or actually for some of the preparation for this. So I just Googled what I was trying to do, or okay, application configuration, or no, I'm sorry, version control. You just type in version control VTScada into Google, and it brings you right into our help files or right into a document on our website. It is our help file in our website is so integrated with Google that you just type it in and the answer is there for you. I'll get calls from customers, and I'm not quite sure. And people I say, why don't you call our tech support guys? I actually take a look at, I'll Google it and find out, or go to our website and search that way, or if I don't have our webpage open, I just have Google open. I'll just Google it, and usually it brings me over to our webpage or to our help files. Again, it explains exactly how to do it. So, if you're trying to think of something to do, don't resort to the scripting. Google it first. You'll probably get your answer.
It's true, and also when in doubt, if you've got a dialogue open and you're like, I don't know what this is, or I don't know how to fill that out, or I don't know what my options are, just hit F1. Yep. So if you're an operator and you're confused, hit F1. It'll open up help specifically tailored to that, to whatever page you're on. And if you're a developer, if you've got whatever dialogue you have open, F1. It'll just bring you right to what you need to know.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, F1 when you're using the product. My example was I was, in the other, probably watching TV or something, and thought of something. So, I'll grab my phone and just Google that answer. So, but yeah, obviously when you're developing something, F1 is your friend.
It's true. It's easy to remember. F1, friend, your number one friend.
Number one. You know what? I'm never going to forget it now.
So the other thing to remember about scripting features is that the nice thing about integrated features is once you develop them, the more you work with standardized things, the more that when you upgrade the software, everything's just going to work. Whereas the minute you start doing any kind of scripting, now again it's something that you have to kind of take care of, and we're pretty good about that. Yeah. It's not hard to take care of it, but it is something you have to take. You coded it, so you have to do the due diligence each time you do a minor or a major upgrade, just to make sure that works right. Whereas if you've used the standard historian, the standard alarm notification system, you really got no worries when you upgrade, and that's a big deal going forward. A lot of people stay trapped in older versions of their software because they don't want to break anything. They've made something really specific that works. And don't run the Windows updates. Don't let it see the internet. Don't do any patches on it. Just don't touch it. It works.
Yeah, because there's probably too much scripts in there. Or the guy that wrote that script has moved on. He retired or moved on to a different job. So
that's a really good point.
There goes that knowledge. So
an orphan script.
It's there. It's there in the background, but try to do it without it. Is my philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, we've gone into our next segment, which is the high dive and act. So now, do you have a preference? Do you want to do some dragging and dropping, or shall I?
I'll let you do it. I'll comment on it, and then I can share my screen after and do mine if you'd like.
Okay, and switch screens. Here we are. There we go. Can you see my screen?
I can now, yes.
Okay, great. So this is just our wastewater treatment plant demo, which you may have seen a few times today. And like we've mentioned, this particular screen was created all with drag and drop elements. And if we go to our tiled page menu and just kind of navigate around a little bit, You'll see it's this menu itself was built in out of the box. It's one of those standard features that when you create a brand new application, you don't have to set this up at all. Every time you add a new page as a developer, it says, do you want me to add this to the menu? And you say, yeah. And it gets added to this tiled page menu. And we've got these 3 pretty pages, which were all made with our Idea Studio with built-in widgets and images. And these basically are meant to drag people into the trade show booth. They're not super great HMIs, but they're pretty impressive on a trade show floor and a great way to start conversations. But they were all created using the Idea Studio. So I'm logged in here, so I'm just going to open that up. And this is what it looks like. And if you just take a second and kind of get your bearings and look along the top of the screen, you'll see a menu that looks very familiar if you've ever used Word or PowerPoint or anything in Microsoft Office. I'm assuming that almost everybody has had that experience. So it's a context-sensitive menu. So if I select an image, for example, then I see I'm able to immediately access the properties that are unique to that, or I can simply right-click and go Properties. There's always a couple of ways of doing things. Now, of course, we're all dragging and dropping, so I can go into any of these folders full of pre-built widgets. And a widget, I think every SCADA platform has their equivalent of what we call a widget. It's just basically a fused together combination of I/O data and images and shapes. And this one is meant to take a parameter, which is an analog status level. So I can just drag that on.
Our widgets, Chris, from what I've seen is when you drop them on there, they always have behavior to them. Almost like the simulator that's kind of running, that's kind of moving the needle or so forth. So you kind of get an indication of what that really is going to do for you when you hook it up to an I/O. And that's pretty unique to VTScada. I've never seen that with any other SCADA packages.
It's true. It's important to know what it does. Like when you're
they use, but they're a widget equivalent.
I didn't know that was unique to us. That's nice to hear, and that's a really good point. That when you drag it on, you might actually have a moment of, what am I talking to? But it's just basically cycling up and down, just to show you what the behavior of the widget is. And if I wanted to, I can use my Control-C and Control-V, and that behaves exactly as you'd think. And something that I find when I look at applications created for the real world, and frequently this is true, they aren't beautiful. The screens, all the data's there, they got them there, they hit their deadline, but there is not a line item on a spec that says make everything line up so it doesn't make A-type personality people crazy. And VTScada kind of makes it difficult to do otherwise. That you can very easily select multiple things. You can align them very easily. They give you sort of guide. If I do that again and hit Control-C and V, you'll see that it's sort of automatically giving me a sense of when things are lined up.
When you're lined up, it has those little grid lines that pop up.
Yes, exactly. I've had too much coffee today. And then what you can do is you can either drag everything onto the screen, make it look just the way you like, and then you can decorate it with various kinds of images. Actually, you can see here we've got this lighting effect that's built in that simulates a discrete area. So these things can be they can be decorative, of course, but they also kind of focus the eyes, can be used to kind of create these discrete functional areas. And of course, this is not a high performance type screen. Many of you, I'm sure, are already shouting at your monitors. And over on the left, you can actually see some more high performance style widgets and shapes that we've got. Actually, the widgets look like this. All these widgets are built in. And to support high performance or any kind of screen design methodology, you can see that just like Tim, you just said, that dial pointed out why that dial is cycling back and forth. Similarly, these shapes are cycling through color to show you that you can put a process data through this widget to adjust its color, which is sort of part of the methodology of high performance HMI. So I'm just going to show you something really fun here. I'm going to take, I got 3 minutes. Well, that's good. I think that works out perfectly. I'm going to just hit Control-C again because we have to cover the scripting part of this. So we'll do that in the micro, and then we'll do it in the macro. So I'm just going to open up a notepad, and I'm going to hit paste. So I just copied the dial, and I hit paste in Notepad. Oh, I'm sharing by screen, not by window. Okay. How about that?
Not
Can
yet.
you see that?
Give it 1 second. Yes.
There we go.
We see the script.
That's why they call it the.
We see the idea studio behind it.
Great. That's why they call it the high dive and act. So this is what that dial looks like in VTScada script. So I can actually go in here and make some changes, although off the top of my head, I don't know what ones will, I guess these are the coordinates for the 4 points of the dial. I'm sure if I change them, it would make it look quite weird. Let's make it look quite weird. See what that looks like. And I'm going to copy this back, and I'm going to go back to the screen, and I'm just going to hit paste. And there it is. And you can see it's actually slightly oblong now because I've just gone in and messed with the coordinates. But that's an example of a very quick, rapid prototyping thing that you can grab an item, quickly adjust its code, and drop it back in again. And if you want to see all of the code for this page, you can actually go to the source code button. And this will open up the VTScada script for this page in your chosen tagged text editor. In this case, I'm using Ultra Edit. So you can see very similar like this. They all kind of follow this similar structure. And once you've, as you said, once you get into it, it doesn't take very long before you start to read the code as if it looked like dials, kind of like looking at the matrix. So again, you have the best of both worlds. You've got the control of being able to work with script and the flexibility and reliability of working with standard drag and drop features. Anything, now we're sort of coming into the finish line here. Tim, is there anything I haven't covered?
I was going to point out you were doing your selecting when you pasted down a couple of different gauges. What I really like about VTScada is there's so many different ways to select objects on your screen. You know, if you go from left to right or right to left, it changes the way you're selecting those. Either you don't have to have the whole object in. If you go left to right, you don't have to have the whole object, just a piece of it. But if you go from right to left, you select the whole object, and just those objects get pasted into your, or not pasted, but into your grab.
It's true. So I just went left and I selected. I think you go one way and you get everything that you touch, and you go the other way and you only get the things that you completely cover.
Yeah. And then also you can do from the menu bar, you can select, and let's say I just want to select the text on my page. I can do that as well.
Exactly. Over here.
So you don't have to go and hold your control key down and click the particular object. Oh, geez, I missed one. Oh no, and then go back and change it. We make it a lot easier for your screen design to be able to select things a certain way.
That's true. And now I'm going to hit X to close the Idea Studio, and those will now be added to my screen, which is actually up here. There we go. And not the most beautiful aesthetic choices that I've made, but I'm going to stand behind them unless I want to use version control to go in and roll them back.
Hey, for a Tuesday afternoon, they look great.
Thank you. This segment should be called Chris is Getting Punchy. So that's just sort of the most briefest mile-high view of the difference between using scripting code and drag and drop features when designing screens.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So I'm going to stop sharing and look back at our lineup here.
Look at our notes here. I think we have another. We're at 20. So training.
I think you get to do some driving now.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I can go ahead and do that. So I think what we have up here is trending. So that's pretty wide open. I mean, we could be historical trending. We could talk about our trending widgets, a variety of different things. So let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. Share screen. And open up VTScada. Okay, are you seeing my tile? Sure. How's that, better? Great.
Still see you. Oh,
fantastic. So Chris has kind of gone over this particular look here. I'm going to actually get into. First, I want to show you the historical data viewer and then some other trending items here. The historical data viewer is. I'm going to open up one of my screens. That is probably one of the features I like the best about VTScada. Actually, you know what? It's the feature I like the best.
I don't blame you. It's great.
Goes back to it might have been one of the first things I saw with the product. In a demo application I built in a previous life, we built a lot around the historical data viewer and creating different pen groups and so forth and flipping between different screens for some analytic looks on some data. And just the flexibility of it, I was just very intrigued with it. So that's what I like about it. What I have here on my screen is I actually have the historical data viewer built into my screen, but you don't need to use it from here. You can simply just go ahead and click on a value on your screen, and it will pop your historical data viewer. And how come I'm not seeing any data? Oh, because I have the pen turned off. Let me make that visible. So I must have turned it off in a previous demo. Okay, so I can click on one. I click on tank 1. I'll click on tank 2. And again, I have that turned off. We click on tank 3.
It shows how hard you've been working today.
Yeah, I know. I didn't use my version control my changes to get rid of everything, so that's why I have some stuff turned off. I was playing around with some different pens and turned some off, I guess, earlier this morning. But as you can see, I just dragged and dropped 3 different pens onto my historical data viewer. There's a lot of, and I can make this bigger or smaller as well. It's just an overlay on top of my screen. So I'm looking at some analog values. I can take these values and I can put them into different plot windows, or I can keep them all in one. Really, the sky's the limit on that. What I want to also show is I can add some digital signals to this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add some pumps as well. So it takes all my analogs, puts them together, and then takes 2 digitals and puts those values down here. Again, I need to turn those back on to see them. So let's talk about what we see down below. So very easily, I can turn pens on and turn pens off, which you're seeing me do. And then I can get into the configuration of the pen itself. And this is all in runtime. I'm not in development at all. I'm strictly in my runtime environment. I can change my color of my pen. I can make it from light blue. I'll make it over to we'll make it a purple pen. Click OK. Now, wherever I use that particular pen, now it will pick up that purple color. I can change the style. I can change the width, and then also I can show the pen, plot peaks, peak average, show alarms if I wanted to. A variety of different things I can do with this. We'll just change the style of that. So that will be anytime I'm using that pen anywhere, it will show it. What I'm showing you, I am using my historical data viewer. But I'm not just looking at historical data. I'm looking at data in real time as well. So it's a real time and historical data viewer, kind of all built into one. It's best of both.
That's a real important point. Yeah.
And what I can do is I can look at it in different intervals. I can look at the last hour. I can look at the last 6 hours if I want. This is a break. I must have I actually turned my demo off and turned it back on, so you're seeing a break in the action there. If I go to a day. This must have been yesterday, yeah, and then this is this morning when I started up my demo. So let's go back over and look at just the last hour or so forth. But not only can I do it that way, but I can pick a date and time when I want to go back and forth. So say I want to look at data from, I'm looking at data from the 6th. Let's go back to the 5th and look at my data and then span that out to a one-day view. And here's my data from the 5th. And let's go back over to a real time and back to a day's view. And we'll just go to 12 hours. We'll go back over to an hour. I can pan and zoom around. A lot of different features we can do here. I can also come into here. I want to reuse this pen group somewhere else. I can come in here and give it a name. So I'm going to come in here to my browser. I can add more pens to it if I wanted to. I can, I can filter my pens by name, area, description, type, so forth. But all my pens are listed here. The ones I've selected are down here. And let's go ahead and save this group so we can reuse this at a later time. And we're going to call this, let's call this WEFTEC PM. Because I think I probably did something this morning, and I probably called it just WEFTEC. I'm not quite sure, but I don't think I've used the WEFTEC PM name yet today. So we'll save that out, and let's minimize this. We'll leave that historical data viewer here. But say I was somewhere else in my system, and I wanted to see this particular screen. I want to use this pen group somewhere else. I can come over here. Here's the screen that I have. I can come in here, and I can pick WEFTEC PM, and there's my data. So it's the same pens that I selected from when I built out my historical data view. Now I'm using those within my application somewhere. So really, really quick, down and dirty. There's more you can do with the historical data viewer, but we're supposed to be talking about trending. So I'm going to get back on track here. There are sections that we have over the next couple of days on historical data viewer. So if you want to learn more, you can go see one of those sessions. Let's go over to the Idea Studio.
Great.
And I think I have a couple more minutes left, and I'm going to go into, let's do a new screen, a new page. Page 30, we'll leave it at that name, make it easy. And we'll add that down here. Okay, so page 30. So now Chris was in this environment before. He was grabbing some gauges and dropping them onto the screen. I'm going to come into a different widget folder, and I'm going to come into my my analytics folder, trends in history. So in here, here are some different trends that you can use for building out a screen. If I wanted to use that historical data viewer, drop that onto my screen, which I did. Here it is right here. Say I just wanted to plot a single pen, I can drag that over and drop that. If I wanted a sparklines, that's a new feature in version 12. It's kind of doesn't have your plot behind there. You can add a reference line and so forth. It's a really, really cool feature. I can drag that onto my screen as well. And we can go ahead and let's get into the configuration and let's connect this up. So I'll come into properties, connect this guy up to a tag. Let's go into water distribution, zone 1, tank 1. I'll look at the level. Is there a question, Chris?
No, you're filling the time beautifully.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'll pick select there. So notice that it gives me that purple color that we were using before with the dashes. That's how we left that pen last time. So it carries that through my system. I can come over to my historical data viewer, and I can configure that as well if I wanted to. Or I can go right into runtime. And this is my historical data viewer that I had open from before. But here's that page that I just built. Obviously, this is an unlinked widget that I dropped on, but here's my single plot. Over here is my plot view that I dragged and dropped. And I can go ahead and select that WEFTEC PM pen group and have it populate as well. Or I could have configured that within my drawer environment. Either way. And I think we are out of time here, so I'm going to stop before I cut into someone else's time.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, the sparklines are great because if all you want to know is from across the room, what's that tag been doing in the last 5 minutes or 1 hour, a sparkline is a really great way to give you that immediate context without sort of pegging your system, without being a resource hog like a full trend view would be. Not that they're that intensive, but they're the more efficient approach is to add that little that sparkline.
Right.
Very good. So now we are on. Hey, we've got Mike Stark back again. Hi, Mark.
Hey,
Mike.
What's going on, Chris? Hey, you know what? That is okay. I tell you what, I get that all my life, and here's why. I'm going to make you feel better, Chris. Okay.
I'm sorry,
Mike. It's okay, Tim. Whatever your name is. So Mike Stark, and everybody goes Mark. And the only thing I would say is, how in the world would anybody name their son Mark Stark? But there's probably a bunch of Mark Starks out there, and if there's a bunch of Mark Starks, please talk to Chris Little here about that. Anyway, no worries, my brother.
Mark Stark.
And you have a cousin, right?
That's right. Yeah. Just call me anything. Don't call me late for dinner, man. That's the thing. There you go.
So you had.
What's that? Oh.
All right, so you've got another show report for us. Now, you had sort of teased this earlier that you were going to come and tell us about PFAS.
Well, actually, I'm just kind of messing you up big time. I love doing this, okay? This is great. I just want to keep you on your thing and use all of that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, go ahead,
because, wait, okay, that's fine, Ken. What I want to do, Tim, Tom, whatever. What is your name again? Yeah, Mr. Little. What I decided to do on this was to actually look at something very topical. I think this is very topical, especially what's going on. And so I looked at an hour-long presentation for COVID-19 water and wastewater systems and implications. And I think this is going to be very interesting. At least it was very interesting to me, and hopefully very topical as we looked at this. So this was a live chat between actually 4 doctors, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ramesh Goel from the University of Utah. There was a Dr. Kevin Gilmore from Bucknell University, Dr. Francois Renoy from North Carolina State University, and then Dr. Daniel Gentry, who's actually with the Southern Nevada Water Authority. So it was really interesting what they were talking about in terms of the epidemiology of COVID-19 in relationship to actually being able to sample that from wastewater plants. So you guys have probably heard of that. It's interesting in Ohio and where I live, they've been doing that. And really to get to one of the first points is that by being able to sample the wastewater streams, they can actually get a indicating leader by what these gentlemen said was anywhere from 2 to 3 days to even up to 2 weeks that would show areas of increasing infection. So it was really very interesting. They went into some, of course, real details about some of the things that they've been looking at and the different methods and samples that they were looking at. One of the things that they said that was kind of hard to kind of come to terms with is they have their way of actually looking at how much virus is in a particular sample, and how do you actually not dumb it down, but actually put it into layman terms to show that, here's what we're looking at for a certain area. So I thought that was really interesting. They were all very collaborative. And Dan was saying that he was kind of the new kid on the block in terms of these other 3 doctors had known each other out of the different research areas, and they all mentioned how, because of the severity of this and the importance of this, how the research community has really come together to really start working on all this, of all these different things, and across the world, of course. So I thought that was very interesting. They mentioned there were questions about whether or not you could get any kind of COVID through water systems, and they said that's a minimal risk, hardly any risk at all. And then the other thing I thought was interesting is they're doing grab samples and different sampling from different sewer areas, or the influent and the effluent from different plants. And so aside from the normal protections that the treatment folks would do, they didn't believe that they needed to have any more normal protections, because they believe that you can't get COVID through that kind of exposure. So that was really interesting.
Presumably you can get a whole lot of things from wastewater other than COVID. So yeah, I would imagine they'd be suited up pretty well.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. And actually, it's funny. When I was at this company, integrator, that I was there for 12 years, there was a gentleman that had worked for the Cincinnati, one of the largest wastewater plants there, Cincinnati MSD. And I don't know how we got to talking about this, but he said when he first started there, he got sick a lot. It was like with the first year, he was like, man, I'm like every, month I was getting sick and stuff like that. But after about a year and a half, he never got sick. It's really interesting. He said, only time I ever got sick, it was really, really bad. So I don't know what you would pull from that, except for, I guess, there's a lot of germs hanging out there if you're around that area.
Right.
So I've heard that from a lot of other people. Have you?
So I guess what I'm curious about is from this presentation. So first of all, it seems like it's more not ad hoc, but it's manual testing as opposed to they didn't just sort of go into an existing sensor or an existing part of the process and pull their samples from that. They went in and said, we're going to test here, here, and here manually, and then here, here, and here manually, and look at that those results. Is that right?
That's right. And actually, what I think is interesting, or, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. I think this might be maybe impossible to actually automate that. But wouldn't that be amazing?
That's probably true.
It's probably true, but I don't know. I mean, Chris or Tim or whatever your name is. Tim, you're the other guy. I know you, man. That's you. You wonder about that because I don't know what the process is to be able to do that type of stuff. They went into some of the details.
It's true, but I'll bet you we'll be a lot further along in a year from now. But I guess what I'm really driving at is, so when they are collecting these results, or when they're measuring this, when they're taking these samples, are they comparing that to their known, examples of COVID in the community? Like, how are they correlating that to other ways of measuring COVID in the community?
Yeah, that's a really cool question.
Are they corroborating one with the other, or are they saying, oh, there's clearly a population that we're not aware of because the effluent tells a different story?
That's exactly it. And what they were saying is that they, as researchers, needed to be more in contact with the public service folks and public health people on that. But they gave a few examples of they actually tested a dormitory. I think this was in Nevada, and they found a major hotspot, and they were actually able to, ahead of the game, they by what they had found, what the amount of COVID that they had found in that sample, they estimated that there would be 2 to 5 people that were going to be sick in that dormitory. And sure enough, they found them and ahead of the game from everybody else. So, so it's really kind of interesting. But a lot of cool stuff. I think it was very topical. Again, Chris, I think if we could all put our heads together and come up with an automatic way to do that, wouldn't that be an amazing situation? But I think it's pretty cool. The last point I'll make was that they brought up that they're doing all this testing across the world, sample testing for each person, and that's one person. With water and wastewater, you could end up sampling thousands of people, or way more of that. So there you go. There's my scoop on COVID-19 within wastewater. So
thanks, Mike.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Thanks again. You've been coming in and out all day. Thanks for that. And I guess we'll see you again tomorrow.
That sounds really good. Chris, Tim, see you guys. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
And we're back. So we're almost to the end of the day. We just have one more question time with Nat. Hi, Natasha. You there?
I am. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you making out, Tim?
I'm doing well. Doing well. That was quite the report from what was his name? Mike? Was that it?
I thought it was Mick.
It was good. It was a good report.
Just say that it really gave me a feeling sitting here of being at an in-person trade show. You always kind of get silly. It's getting towards the end of the day. Maybe you've found a floor beverage or not, but it always has that feeling in the booth towards the end of the day of getting silly. And when Mike came on, it really came across as if it was just like an in-person silly end of the day feeling. So
also, by the end of the day of every day at a trade show, you can barely feel your own face from smiling so much. So by the end of the day, you're kind of like, yeah, that's right.
But That is true. I also wanted to say, just following up on Tim's report, when he was talking about the Brave Blue World documentary, that there is a recording in the WEFTEC Connect app for all registered attendees that they're able to rewatch it. So I've just put our discount code in the comment section again. So if anybody did miss that last night, they're not registered, they can go ahead, register for free with our code. They can see that documentary before it's released on Netflix. And of course, they can check out all of the exhibitor booths with that. And I think also it gets you into like some other networking roundtables, and the closing ceremonies, things like that. So that code is in the comments. I guess I could have saved that all for the show wrap. So I'll go ahead and get right into some questions. Do you have any other shows coming up?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes. Now, I can tell you that the Automation Village will be having another one of its regularly scheduled virtual trade shows like we've been doing since March, and that will be coming up, ironically, later this month. I remember when we started doing this, a 3-hour live stream was an exhausting experience that we thought we couldn't top. So 5 full days. Yeah, it will just seem like, like you've been swinging 9 bats and now you're just swinging 1. So we haven't picked out a date yet, but if you go to the front page of our website, probably soon next week, early next week, we'll probably have a date for when that trade show is going to be. And that's going to be, again, a 3-hour live stream on a Thursday. And then the following Thursday, we'll have breakout sessions where the guest exhibitors from other companies will then have a longer chance to do a full presentation of their software or talk about their area of expertise, and you'll be able to ask questions and interact with them. And as far as the other trade shows are concerned, you can actually see all of our upcoming trade shows on our website, but I'm not sure now that we did the AWWA event last week.
Outside of wrapping this week and our own Automation Village virtual trade shows, right now we're not signed up for any other trade shows. So just the Automation Village event.
Some of the guys in the U.S. are looking. Oh, I know in my region, I'm starting to look at some of the different associations, the junior associations, state level, for what they're offering for virtual shows. None of them are doing in person yet, but I think there's one coming up for November. So of course I'll get the details up to you guys so you can post that if we do some type of sponsorship there. But I think what we'll see is maybe a couple of those regional ones pop up.
That's great.
Yeah, and so once we register for a show or we confirm that we're going to be at a show, it of course always goes onto our website in the events section, and we always post about what we're doing on social media, so you can follow us on any of those channels as well. And another easy one, since it is the end of the day, is what does VT in VTScada mean?
Well, I can certainly tell you it doesn't mean Virginia Tech, and stop asking. There's always
Vermont.
Yeah, there's always somebody at the trade show who comes up really mad because they think we're camping on the name for Virginia Tech. That we're somehow having stolen valor from that organization. But what it actually means, if we go back to the beginning, actually, do you want to tell the story, Tim, or shall I, of the naming of VTScada?
Well, you tell the story because you probably know it a little bit better than I do.
Sure. Well,
I know what the words are, but I'll let you. I know you'll get it.
You don't know the bridge of the song.
Yeah, I can hum it.
So in the earliest days, like back in, Glenn Wadden founded the company in '86, and I think around about '87 or so, he actually had the first sort of releasable version of the product that is now known as VTScada, and that was called Web, and that was before the days of the World Wide Web. And in fact, I think we actually had a trademark on that name in Canada. And then, of course, when Windows came along, suddenly the idea that you could visualize, Web was basically a DOS program. So if you opened up your command window on your computer, that's what it basically would look like. It was a DOS program. And then when Windows came along, it meant that you could visualize your tags. So it was Visual Tag System, and that's what it was known as for many years. And the thing about VTScada is that we support, this is getting a little bit inside baseball, but we have OEM layers. So you've got, you could basically take an application for VTScada. It was VTScada, an application, and then you could build an application on top of an application. So what we did was we wanted to create a SCADA tools layer. So we had VTScada, and then we created a SCADA layer, and then we would create, SCADA layer, and then we would create applications on top of that. So when you made a new application, you could make it just VTS, or you could make it VTScada, depending on which one of those two things you did. But it turned out that in the end, having the SCADA was always a good idea. It had features that everybody kind of wanted to use, even if they weren't doing traditional SCADA. So at one point they said, well, this is a distinction that isn't important or relevant and just causes confusion. So we made it all one thing. And now it's just VTScada. And the other reason is that VTS, if you go in and type in VTS software, there is no end to the number of hits you will get. There's a million examples of VTS software. But VTScada, just one.
Perfect. So I'm going to end my questions there a little bit early. I've got a few more good ones, but it's going to be getting into screen sharing and whatnot. So I'll save those for tomorrow.
Sounds
also,
good.
If anybody has any questions, make sure that you send them to us so we can try and stump the hosts live. And perfect. So I'll be back tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
And now we should have the closing music playing, and that song they play at the end of Saturday Night Live when they go to the host saying goodnight. And we've got Pete Diffley back with us. Hey, Pete. Are you joining us, or are you just watching from the sidelines?
I was just watching from the sidelines, but I just said I'd say hi.
Hi, Pete.
So, how are you guys doing?
I think we're doing okay, although as we've noted, I'm getting a little bit punchy. So we're ending on a high note.
Yeah, I was exploring our own breakout sessions actually as well, just to see what's going down, you know. So I did that as well. So yeah.
Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, well, it was our own team's stuff, so it was a good experience. I'm afraid I didn't venture around the trade show floor, so I can't actually give you anything in the way of a show report. But it seems we were kind of, you know, having a little discussion that I think one of the, it's the good, the bad, the ugly parts of virtual conferences now is that I think people kind of come in and it's a bit like Black Friday. They come in and they tear it all apart, and then there's not so much stuff left in people's eyes. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic where, you know, so people can just jump in momentarily and they're gone again. But I was looking at some of our show analytics. I'm not going to publicly tell everyone that, but in terms of the exact numbers. but no, we've actually had a good day. You know, just viewership wise, it was quite interesting. So I think people are watching and engaging, but I think a lot of people like to engage from a distance. If you know what I mean, they're not necessarily all typing and chatting and getting into different things, but still, our numbers are quite high for the last 2 days. So it's an interesting kind of thing. That's all. I
see that we're being joined now by Alan Hudson, who's come on to say goodnight with us. Now, would you mind yielding your position, Pete? Yielding your photo on the screen? Hi, Alan. How was your day?
Man, my day was fantastic, and actually, Pete and I are in the same place because you can tell we're at the same booth. And I'll tell you what I found was so awesome about this booth. If I move out of the way, you actually see the true picture from the trade show, and that's me in the background. What a great picture that is, huh?
I'll move this way, and you move the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's only so long that you can violate time and space in that way.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
Quantum physics.
So you asked about the day, Chris. I've actually learned a number of things today, and I'll tell you, I really enjoyed having a chance to be that off-the-cuff guy for the first hour of the day. And so Dave and I had a chance to chat back and forth And not only did he learn a couple of things from me, but I learned a ton of things from him. And I find that so powerful that now I can go off and have a little more color, if you will, to my presentations, because I know a little bit more now. I know that I did have a very engaging conversation over one of my breakout sessions as well. And again, it'll turn into some further conversations for sure. And all that is fantastic. I really enjoyed listening to the show reports. So Tim and Mike, especially, I'm still laughing internally, Chris, about Mike talking about the movie that you guys can be a part of. I mean, he's so clever with that kind of thing too. You know, just kind of roll up his mouth like it's truth. You know.
The Graduate. That's right, isn't it? The Graduate.
That's right. But. But those are the kind of things that come out of trade shows that, you know, if we're physically there, we're having those conversations in the aisle with somebody else who went to that session, because we went to a different one perhaps. And so having that show report, I thought, was one of the powerful pieces of the day.
Yeah.
So
I agree, and it's really something that the entire sales team has been able to, including you, Tim, just jumped on and been ready to roll. You know, it's one thing to kind of be on the train the whole time. It's another to have to keep running and jumping on and off. It's a whole other level of difficulty. So I really appreciate that grace.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I guess it's all, we're all looking for connection in this. So we found a way to all be at the same event together now, and now we're trying to find the way that, like you just said, where you can finally close that gap, where you're in the breakout session with someone and you actually make that connection. They're not just sort of on the sidelines looking and poking a head in and then disappearing.
Right.
That to make the connection, to say, yes, I want to talk to you, you want to talk to me, and we can make that a real world relationship.
That's right. Absolutely right. So
it'll be interesting to see how that evolves in future events when we get to WEFTEC and ACE next year.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and I'm sure everybody hopes we have them in person. I know that the committee people are planning for them to be in person. And so, yeah, we do hope that'll be the case as well. And even for our event, you know, our VTScada Fest, as you may remember, we were having VTScada Fest as this was starting to become an issue, as borders are being closed, you know, flights to Canada and things. Most everybody came. I think we had a couple of folks that had to back out because of COVID concerns from their municipalities. But outside of that, everybody came and everybody went home, and it was the next week when everything shut down. So we were very, very thankful to get to have that opportunity. And I know, you know, if it doesn't come through again, we have some pretty cool things in the works. And what we've been doing these last few days, and actually in even previous events, AWWA, for example, has given us a lot of opportunity to try some new techniques, do some new things. And in fact, it's really fun to watch as we go from Charlotte, North Carolina, or Halifax, Nova Scotia, all the way over to Aberdeen, Scotland, and have our technology married up together. Wow, with the future possibilities are going to be amazing. So anyway, I thought that was fantastic, and I think it's a lot of great things to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Is there any other parting comments, Tim? You did a great job hosting today, by the way.
Alan brought up a great point. I think we've learned a lot of things from this event, and of course our other virtual event, and then the Automation Village you do. So if we needed to go virtual with our SCADA Fest, we could do it, and I think we could pull it off very easily. Nothing beats an in-person, but when it's ready, we'll be there. But if that's not the case, we have a backup.
It's true, and there's no reason. And once those that infrastructure is in place, then we actually just have a new tool in our quiver. When we do go back to in-person events, we'll now have an option for people who literally can't come for a variety of reasons to come and join that experience with us, which is so important.
That really is a major point, Chris, and I think that we've mentioned it before at different events and different virtual kind of things that we've been doing, that this whole world is probably going to be more hybrid in its approach. And I think that as people have had to gear up to kind of participate in virtual events, that that some people that's what they'll choose, and we just have to be in a position to offer both simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's all a high diving act.
That's it. As I said earlier,
I was saying, from my side, it's all about who has the hospitality events, how good they're going to be. That's how I'm determining whether I'm virtual or not.
Yeah, it's true. Once they figure out how to have a drone come and deliver a beer right to my balcony, then
there we go. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So on that note, I think maybe it's probably a good chance to wrap it up. So thanks to everybody. Mike Stark, I see you there. We don't have enough spaces in our template, but good to see you. Thanks again for coming in and out. Thanks, Keith, for taking over from Pete. You guys have done an amazing job, not just driving this whole thing, but also jumping in and out and talking and participating in real time. And nice co-hosting with you, Tim. I'm glad we had the chance to do that. And Alan, you are always the glue that brings all these things together.
That's because you can't get rid of me. I'm sticky.
It's all about attitude. I think you've said before.
Looking forward to hanging out.
And Chris and Dave, thanks to you guys for your last couple of days, and we still have a few more. But you guys have done a fantastic job. Every time I've tuned in, you've been spot on, ready to roll. So great job, both you and Dave, and Natasha as well, and Pete.
Absolutely, yeah.
The whole team.
Nice, guys.
And let me just take the chance to thank the whole sales team: Blair Suley, Pat Cook, Tim Donaldson, Blair Suley, Alan Hudson, Matt Stark. I'm kidding, Mike Stark, and I call back to earlier, and Dan Naughton. So thanks to them again for hopping in and out, for having breakout sessions, for exploring the conference and bringing that information back to us.
And by the way, Chris, I have something very important as just a little announcement there for the team. The sliders that weren't eaten last night, they're actually still available on the first floor, just and second floor, I should say. So if you want to go up there, and there's some reused beer, at least I think it was reused beer. It tasted funny, but it was left out as well. So it's all there for you.
Okay, I'll meet you all in Ballroom B.
Ballroom B.
Okay, thanks everybody. Get some sleep tonight.
You too. Bye guys. Bye bye. See you in the morning. Bye bye.